Hey, everybody, welcome to the Video Game Break podcast. I am Carl Sodella. Today I have with me,
Dean Tate.
Brian Chan.
and you guys are doing the Captain Forever remix of the original game, Captain Forever, which is an indie game that's on the internets, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we are doing something that's a little bit different to what is typically done out there when people like remake or reboot a game or a franchise. We're making a remix of a game called Captain Forever, and its immediate sequel, which was called Captain Successor, which were made by a good friend of mine, this guy named Farbs, who I used to work with at 2K Australia. He made those back in 2009, and Brian and I are now working on this new thing, which is called Captain Forever Remix.
Cool.
Um,
I'm really excited by the picture I saw of the really cool artwork. I had no idea what the game was. That's the first thing I saw, and I was like, is that Ren and Stimpy? It just looked like really cool, awesome cartoons, and I was like, I'll play whatever this is.
that's good to hear because, well, so part of the reason that we're working on this project is for Beach and I to learn some new skills, and I'm the artist on the program on the project. So I've been developing those skills a lot over the last few months, and I'm also kind of in the process of sort of working out what our influences are for the visuals of the game. And it's funny, like Ren and Stimpy is sort of one of them. Adventure Time is one of them. Old Nickelodeon cartoons. A lot of the stuff that I was into when I was growing up, and it's interesting the reactions that I'm seeing to that poster. In that people are picking those different references, and also some that weren't necessarily on my mind when I was painting that thing.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Well, it's
yeah.
something to get you excited, and we'll talk about that game in a little bit. But first, let's get started and just talk about you guys, Dean and Brian, friends. Where are you both located?
I live in San Francisco. This is Brian. Dean referred to me earlier as Beachan, so Brian, Beachan, same thing. But
Okay,
I live in San Francisco right now.
I, I,
Well,
I
technically,
I was just there for 5 years and I loved it, but it's way too expensive.
exactly. That's why I moved to Berkeley, especially when I was getting into the indie development. I'm like, I can't do that with paying this rent each month.
Oh
So I
yeah, it's
think
ridiculous. I was in Berkeley for a little while, North Berkeley, by Martin Luther King and Virginia up there. It's
I
not.
live on Virginia.
Oh, you do? Weird. It's such a
Is it
cool.
anywhere? Is it anywhere near the Apple Store that was raided this morning?
I haven't heard about that. I did not
Uh,
hear about that.
that
So
was a
that's not
smash
new.
and grab.
Berkeley is very far away from everything, and that's so weird that you were on the street that I was on. It's so peaceful there, right? It's like quiet and
It's super quiet. Yeah.
flowers everywhere. Anyways, we won't go into that too much. But so San Francisco, and wait, Dean, where are you from?
I'm from Australia originally, and I've been living in the States for uh, on and off for I guess around 8 years now, but permanently for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, and what state is that? Are you in now?
I'm in Seattle.
Seattle. Okay, yeah, you're here.
Yeah,
You're down the street from me. That's right. We should hang out.
yeah, yeah, perfectly. Yeah.
Um,
Well, Seattle's a city, Dean. Washington is the state.
Oh, right. Okay.
Just
Whatever.
to
American
oh,
just to
geography.
clarify that for anyone.
that's fine.
I'm living in America.
No,
Need to be more specific than that.
All right. Well, let's start with the just the kind of the old school question before the old school question of the three stages. Just kind of a generic. What video game system did you guys start with? I'll let Dean go first because you were just
Sure.
talking.
I was a huge Nintendo fanboy. My first consoles, in quotation marks, were the old Nintendo Game and Watch systems. I had like Donkey Kong 2, which was that cool clamshell setup, and I had Oil Panic, and I had all those sorts of things. And past that, an NES system, and I was definitely a huge fanboy. I was that kid that sat in the uh in the in the playground at lunchtime drawing pictures of like Mario beating the crap out of Sonic. Um,
Oh, the big old Nintendo
yeah,
Sega War.
yeah,
System wars, console
I know.
wars.
Have you heard
exactly.
about that movie coming out?
I
No,
have.
Yeah, there's a book, Console Wars, and it's being adapted into a movie. Weirdly enough, by Seth Rogen and
What?
his buddy there. What's his buddy?
um,
Oh, geez. They were
oh,
just
James Franco.
no, his writing partner. Anyways,
Oh,
the
okay.
internet already answered it probably.
Yeah, yeah, I know the guy you're talking about.
Well,
Console
anyways,
War.
Console Wars, yeah, is the Sega Genesis or Sega versus Nintendo basically in general. And so you were a Nintendo fanboy, screw Sonic.
I was a huge Nintendo fanboy, but then when I went to my cousin's house, they had a Sega Master System, and I would sneak off into the lounge room and sit there and play that.
You're like, wait
Just
a minute, you know what? Sonic's pretty cool. He's
he
not
was
that
pretty
bad.
he was pretty cool. He was pretty fast.
And
He
now,
looked much cooler.
and now Sonic is all over Nintendo. It's on
I
the
know.
3DS.
He's now like in the Olympics with Mario and Peach and Wario and Yoshi.
Those Olympics games have to stop. Just have to stop. All right, so you started with Nintendo, and Brian, what did you start with?
I'm probably the same, probably NES. I was on the cusp of like I'm a few years older than Dean, I think, and I was on the cusp of when Atari 2600 and so on. Like some people had that in like my friends and cousins and so on and so forth, but I really like didn't get going until NES and Game Boy, the first Game Boy. So that's what I had when I was a kid.
Oh man, the first Game Boy. Do you remember having to you'd have to sit usually out in full sunlight with it angled
Oh, the
just
angle.
perfectly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go outside. I just stayed inside all the time.
I'd sit against a window. Yeah, I wouldn't actually go outside.
You're like, wait a minute, was I really outside? Maybe not.
That was a lie.
Yeah, that screen was terrible, and I remember playing Super Mario something on it, whatever the Super Mario game was.
Mario Land.
Mario Land.
Mario Land. Yep.
And weird enemies that weren't ever in any of the Mario games were in that.
Yeah.
But that scrolling was just terrible. All the blur.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. I actually tried to play that recently. I also had one of those massive magnifying glass
Oh yeah.
setups that you could clasp onto it that had like a little reading light on it to try to help fix it all up. It was terrible.
They were still making those lights and magnifying stuff for the Game Boy Advance. Like up into that stage, they were still saying like, you know what? We still aren't there yet. Why don't you use this little light?
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance SP was sort of the first like front lit Game Boy screen that didn't have those problems.
Yeah.
That thing was amazing.
Yeah.
That was a nice piece of hardware.
Do you guys remember the Game Boy Micro?
Yeah, that's the one that I don't have.
Well, why? Why did they make it? I bought one at some point, and I was like, why do I want my games smaller? I don't understand what the point was.
Just slip it in your pocket. It's great.
I don't know. All right. So what would you say your current like systems that you're really enjoying then are? If you've obviously matured up into more of the modern systems from Nintendo. So like let's go back. So from Nintendo, what was the next system?
There was like the Mega Drive, and then there was like the Dreamcast and PS era and N64.
But you said Mega Drive because Australia, Mega Drive, here, Sega Genesis.
He also said Sega too, which is freaking weird.
How do you guys pronounce these things?
Sega.
Yeah. Sega.
There's a lot of commercials out. They all said it like loud and fast, remember?
Okay.
Sega!
And what was the Mega Drive called here?
Sega Genesis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's like as confusing as Xbox One. Like it's not the first. That wasn't the first Sega. That was the.
They were just like the Master System didn't exist.
Yeah, right.
History books.
Which is weird because the Master System did pretty well in Japan. It was like there was a lot of different iterations of the Sega Master System. It was this kind of, I forgot what it's called, but like this weird, strange letters and numbers, like X3 to, system, whatever it was called. And there was like a lot of iterations of it, but.
We
All I remember was like the box art, which was like this like graph paper, and then they would have like a weird.
Yeah.
Remember that like that white
with,
like, grid on top, and they would have like a weird picture on top, and that was all the art had to conform to that format.
Yeah, all the games too. They look like that same style. All right.
That was one. I wanted to say like one piece of interesting Master System hardware that they had in Australia. You could rent down at the video shop was like it's a Master System that had a plastic briefcase that would wrap over the top of it, so it was kind of portable. Like you could fit the controllers and some games inside of it, and the actual console was grafted to the suitcase.
Australia is
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, but who really was bringing their Sega Master System around to friends? That's the question.
Yeah.
So, Brian, did you do the same thing, like a ton of the consoles all the way up through?
Yeah, I think I was mostly along the Nintendo line. I did get off. I never played the N64. I never owned that, so I missed out there. Went over. Then I went like PS1, PS2, and then I jump shift to 360, and now I'm back on the PS4 bandwagon. So kind of usually I'll stick to one system per gen, but that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good gamut of systems, and you both seemed qualified for the rest of the conversation. Not like that. That was a qualifying round, but
that was the test.
But it was. Um, so, how did you guys get started into making games? And is this your first foray into doing it for both of you?
This is the first thing that we're doing together, really. I'd say. Actually, maybe not.
Well,
you can look at that last project that we worked on an iOS game together.
Yeah. I forget that easily. I think we both forget that easily. I don't know why we forget that easily.
Was it
Well, I was just kind of really a helping hand on that. I wasn't really working with you.
Right.
But that was a game that Dean made called Captain Bubble Nut for Apple iPad and iPhone.
Mm-hmm. Another Captain game?
I know.
Yes.
I'm starting a trend.
So let's not confuse things further. We'll never speak of that game again.
Okay.
The game we're working on right now is Captain Forever Remix.
And the iOS game is Captain Bubble Nut Remix. I mean, wait, no.
I don't know. I forgot what we're talking about. Am I the captain?
No, we met at Harmonix where we worked. We both kind of started there in 2009. Dean worked on Dance Central. I'm just explaining for Dean because
yeah, sure.
I care. And then I worked on the Rock Band games. And before that, we had also worked in kind of AAA games. But we met at Harmonix.
Cool. And that was a fun time and good experience.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed working at Harmonix and living in Boston. Actually,
yeah,
but yeah, came out here after that.
Did you guys hear about the Amplitude Kickstarter thing?
We did.
Yeah.
Pretty excited.
I hope it. I'm still crossing my fingers for that one.
I remember playing Frequency and just loving Frequency so much. Although that being said, the last podcast I was on, we were talking about rhythm games, and I can't remember when I played one last. I think. Maybe
you and everybody else.
Yeah, I feel like it was a moment or something.
Well, there have actually been some people are doing really cool stuff in that genre right now, but a lot of it is like you wouldn't necessarily think of some of the games that you made right now if you thought rhythm game. Like I'm thinking of like Centris, which has been worked on by Samantha Kalman, and that which is a bit more traditional. And then there's Cryptid the Necrodancer.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, it's looking really cool.
And, Fract just came out.
Yeah, which is like a weird, surreal adventure exploration game thing in a musical world, right? Like, yeah. These games aren't like beat match, rhythm, traditional rhythm games, but it's cool that people are doing interesting stuff with that genre.
Yeah, that's what I like seeing is this beautiful mashup of stuff that's happening right now. There was a game that I remember playing on my Ouya, which is called the Soulfjord,
Mm-hmm.
And it was
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's like a roguelike adventure RPG game, action game, and then you basically attack the guys in a rhythm, music sequence, and so I like that stuff. But yeah, the traditional kind of going around in a Tempest style circle, I'm maybe not so much into that anymore. All right, let's talk about your game that you're working on now, Captain Forever Remix, which is not Captain. What is it not?
Forever. It is.
Not
it
Captain
is.
Bubble Nut, and it's not Captain Forever.
Right.
Captain Forever is the inspiration for Captain Forever Remix.
And so Remix is going to be, what is it going to be exactly?
B10, do you want to do it or do you want me to?
Sure. It's basically a space shooter that controls a little bit like Asteroids, but the twist is that you can graft onto your ship new pieces that you salvage from battling other ships. So this is the basic gameplay. It's kind of like Asteroids meets Minecraft or something like that. And that was the gameplay that was set up by Captain Forever, the original one, but it was done. It's pretty kind of like a sort of like minimalistic vector graphics looking game. And Carlos, you played that.
Yeah, very much like Asteroids. And it was very fun. I was just playing it before I was talking to you guys and had to actually close it, but I didn't want to. It was very fun. It controlled with the keyboard, which I'm not such a big fan of, but I still found my abilities and started doing really well. My questions about that old game and what things you might bring over to the new version is those pieces that are floating around, those are all pieces from broken up ships, or are there like starter pieces that show up?
Yeah, it's both, and I think it's even a little bit different in Captain's Successor. So to be clear, we're borrowing from both the original Captain Forever and its direct sequel, which is called Successor. Both are very similar. Both have many aspects to the design that are very similar to one another. Successor is just sort of an extension of what Forever is. Um, I think you asked like what are we bringing from the original games, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's more like how do you get the new pieces, right? Like
Yeah, right.
you get some at the beginning, and then you kind of fight other ships, and you grab theirs.
Yeah.
Right.
And your goal is like kind of like build an awesome ship that can like take out any enemy ship.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the original, it seems like you just jump in and play, and all of a sudden there's people there playing with you. So how does that set up? And yeah, I know this is kind of confusing because we're kind of talking about the old game, and then we should talk about the new game. So let's just clarify the old game first, and then we'll see what you guys are changing in the new version.
So the way it works in the first game and in the old game, right, is that you start out and you've got a bunch of random pieces from this big pool of different types, and you get to put them onto your little command module, which is sort of the heart of your ship. And then you fly around and you fight other randomly generated enemies. So they're made up of the same pieces that you're made up of. And if you can sort of blast through the pieces surrounding their core that are protecting it, and then blast the core of that ship, then that enemy pilot dies, and any pieces that are left over end up floating around in space. You can grab them and like graft them onto your ship, kind of like Lego blocks. And so as you do that, your ship becomes more and more powerful. Sometimes you'll come across in Successor, you'll come across these sort of like heavily defended, in some cases not so heavily defended, sort of stationary space bases that have really great big bulkheads on them. They're really heavy, so they don't fly around, but they're just sitting there and got tons of weapons and stuff on them. And you can like carefully, maneuver towards them, avoid their fire, getting close, take out the core, and then you get a whole bunch of pieces that you get to graft onto your ship. So it's a mix of that, right? Like attacking these big bases, attacking enemy fighters, taking whatever's left over after a battle is done, and then sticking on your ship. And it's all like very immediate, right? It's all very like it's real time. It's not like there's a mode where you're fighting things, and then there's a mode where you take what you collected and you put it onto your ship.
It's all at the same time. Yeah.
It's all at the same time, and that's what makes the game really kind of immediate and sort of pure. It's like you can, even if you're very skilled, destroy a ship and then be fighting off a second ship while you're kind of madly sticking bits onto your own ship.
So the part I liked from the old one was the fact that my mouse was grabbing all the pieces. So my mouse controlled that part of it. And it seemed like I didn't know if there was much of a range, if I had to be close, or if it just had to be on my map, the pieces. But it seemed like pretty much wherever I saw a piece, I could grab it, which is, kind of weird thinking. Was that a super tractor beam? But putting that aside, it was fun and it felt good. But again, my whole thing is just not liking the keyboard to control, because I do love that concept of action and then building at the same time. Because when I even pulled it off at some point, I was fighting a guy, yet watching this piece of floating by me and saying, I need to get that too. So I love that concept. I'm going to jump ahead and ask if you could please add controller support.
I mean, so, that's something we've been talking about. Everything that Dean described gameplay-wise is going to be in Captain Forever Remix. It's just we're probably going to add some stuff and some metagame layer and so on. And the game as it's built by Farbs originally, it is meant for keyboard and mouse together. And I would love to try to put gamepad, make it work for gamepad. If we can figure out a way to do that, it'd make us happy. I'm sure it'd make the players, it'd bring it more up to date with like 2014.
Right. Or just some of us who are like really, like, I mean, I grew up with it in my hand, like literally when it came out of the womb, and they put a Nintendo controller inside my hand. And so it's just like, I feel like my skills are the top notch when I can do that. Plus, I love that combination.
Yeah, like I'm the same as you. I barely ever play games with the mouse and keyboard anymore on PC, so it's something we're thinking about for sure, and we've been throwing around various ideas for how we'd achieve controller support. It's a really, really tough design problem because the game really is built for mouse and keyboard, and for cursor support. I think at the least, like Steam, I'll say that Steam machine controllers are much more suited to just a one-to-one sort of mapping of the controls that we have. But yeah, like B-Chen said, it's our dream that we can support controllers as well. It's something we're thinking about.
It's interesting you said that, because I'm often thinking about that Owl controller
Mhm.
the Steam controller, and how yeah, it does feel more like a mouse, on the right hand side of the analog. So that would be kind of a cool fit. Well, I wish you guys luck on it, and it's fun to see if you add anything to it. I mean, it's fun already by itself as a browser-based game. Um, and it's fun how I can just jump in and all of a sudden start playing, and there's other people there. Do you guys know what you want to do for like limits of how many people per game and how that's going to work?
So are you under the impression that you're fighting other players, other people?
Oh, I guess I was. Am I
Ha ha
not?
ha. You are, well, I like that you had that impression because they were AIs.
That's pretty good AI then.
It's
It's
really simple, but it's
yeah.
effective.
Yeah,
Um,
and I love AI too. So any AI that can trick me or make me feel like it's realistic, that's pretty good. Yeah. So I was swearing at nobody then.
No, that's fine. You were
that's
swearing
a,
at your computer.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well then, so it'll always be a one-player game then?
that's what we're planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Remix will definitely be single player. I mean, we're throwing around ideas for ways of. I don't think we're not going to do straight up multiplayer. There's no, I don't think that having you play directly against other players is in the scope of this game, and I don't know how that would work. But we the original game supported some very light sort of not multiplayer but community driven features. You could share the design for your ship with other people, for example, and then play with other people's ship designs and things of that nature. Um, and so we might be able to do that sort of stuff because it's very cool. We're
Yeah.
still so early; we don't want to make promises about that sort of thing, but it's a cool feature, that one in particular, and there are some others like it that we've been thinking about. So,
Yeah, it lends itself to multiplayer, obviously, but I know it's a whole other beast. I
mhm.
had a crazy concept which would not be doable probably, but you know those drivatars they have in those other
Yeah.
games? You can have like
Sure.
a drivatar version of the spaceship.
Hmm.
Like so, how I build my spaceship and how I attack, maybe that becomes a
Totally.
Yeah, or even
Totally.
just like, my ship design, if I'm happy with it, I can hit a button and it goes out into the world, and now other people will have my ship appear in their game driven by AI.
yeah,
Like, I've made this crazy ship that's covered in ramming spikes, or I've made this crazy ship that's like a big broadside ship that has tons of laser beams on the left side of it, and it
yeah,
like
yeah.
flies alongside you and shoots you, and it just starts showing up in other people's
Celebrity
games.
I
guest.
love that.
Exactly.
And to that point, real quick, is there going to be obviously there's going to be more like types of things you can put on your ship. You're going to add more weapons, etc.
Yeah, the one that you played, which is Captain Forever, it only basically has two or three types of modules that you add onto your ship. But then uh, Captain Successor, which Dean talked about earlier, that's again Farb's direct sequel to Captain Forever. It added a bunch more modules. So there's like Dean was talking about. There's this thing called the ramming spike, which is like a more of a melee weapon. It's like a lance,
Mhm.
I like that
and then
too. I like that. Being able to just go right at someone. That's fun.
right, and then there's like that's a very close range tactic, and then there's like long range tactics like these sort of guided missiles and missile launchers and stuff. So you can engage at different distances, and so they started. He basically started adding more and more types of weaponry to the and defenses also to the last one, and we're probably going to take that base set and maybe expand upon it with a few things. We're not sure exactly what they are yet, but it's
Cool.
a rich set of things already.
Yeah, and I love the idea of just again that concept art that you put out there. Marrying those two in any way seems like a really cool combo. So
Yeah, that's probably going to be the most immediate thing that strikes people as what's different about the game, right? Is that it's going to look completely different to the original. We're developing our own art style, our own sort of universe for this to take place in. Farb's had a very specific sort of world and like narrative wrapper for the original games, where the idea was sort of that like I'm not playing a video game. I am Captain Forever, and I'm sitting in front of my monitor, and I'm remotely controlling this command module of mine that if you get deep into it, when it blows up, it destroys the entire universe.
oh
And so that's why I'm trying to stay alive and defend myself. And so you see that in the original game. You see like reflection of your own face in the screen when you're firing and when explosions go off and what have you. And we have the desire to, and Farbs has heavily encouraged us to drop all of that stuff and go with our own direction for what the game is going to look like and sort of what the narrative wrapper is. So, which is really cool of him, right? Like we're lucky that we have that really close relationship with him, and he's okay with us making whatever changes we see fit to his baby.
Totally. And what's he doing now, by the way? What's he working on? Is he working on something else, or?
Yeah, so he's working on a new game called The Dawn Star, which does borrow quite heavily from the Captain Forever series, but it is a very, very, very different experience to the early games in the series. So he's building something, and I don't want to get this wrong because it's his game, so I'm gonna be pretty vague here. But he's building a game that's much more of a sort of semi-structured adventure game, I guess you could say, where there's like a sense of progression. You're still building your ship out of bits and pieces and different types of modules, but you're also progressing through various sectors in space and always trying to get to the next sector. And it's much more about exploration. You're exploring these massive procedurally generated areas that have like various locations to visit, and there are new mechanics such as like you've got an oxygen meter, and if your oxygen meter runs out, then you die. So you have to take over these enemy bases to take over their oxygen system. It's a much more complex game.
Yeah, it seems pretty big.
Yeah, and so that's exciting that we kind of have these. There are these two separate ways that the series is kind of moving forward. He's differentiating himself a little bit from Captain Forever by calling it the Dawn Star. So he's kind of treating it as this completely new thing.
Well, it's a cool concept. I mean, I don't think I've heard of such a thing, at least in a while, if ever, where a developer works on a game, creates the lore and this kind of like structure and gameplay, and then friend developers come in and make an awesome version of it, or a different version of it, really, totally remixed. And then he goes and continues to kind of still do the same world of game stuff, but in a different game. It's just a cool combo. So I think everybody should be looking forward to both of them.
Yeah, I kind of wish that it'd be cool to see more indies especially do this sort of thing.
I know, I love the collaboration idea.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. I think part of it for Beachan and I is that we're just excited to take a break from having to be pure designers and, have a lot of that work done for us, and therefore get to put a lot of our energy into these other things that are sort of new to us, right? Like the art for me, BJ and code for you, everything else that goes with being indie, having to run the company and do marketing and all of the admin stuff and what have you. Like that, there's a lot of work there and a lot of new stuff for us to learn. So we get to take our designer hats off at least halfway for this project.
That's awesome. Really good. Yeah. Well, so what are we thinking about release date wise? Or are we not thinking about that?
We hope this year.
All right, that's good enough.
Basically, that's the most we're willing to commit.
That's good enough for me.
So we should change the website so it says hoping to release this year.
We would like it out this year.
Have it like one of those little Ren and Stimpy type cartoon people going like, "We hope so."
Yes.
All of the veins in his neck
popping out.
He's like has a big fist.
Yeah, we've hit something with the Ren and Stimpy Nickelodeon people. A lot of people are responding to that aspect, and hopefully they'll see that come out through the game.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right, let's talk about excited. Let's go to the first stage of our podcast, which is the hyper stage. Hyper is basically anything we're hyper excited about that we're currently playing, or that we're hyper excited about that's coming out soon. Brian, why don't you go first?
Oh gosh, Dean, what?
Never mind.
Defer to Dean. I have to think about this.
Passing the buck. Is this like a game show? If I go first, do I win something?
Everybody wins something in this podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
They're nothing tangible, but it's just like a sense of happiness.
just a contented look from you at a job well done on this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. I have an answer for this prepared. So currently, the only thing that I'm playing a lot of is basically the entire Souls series. I just replayed Demon Souls again. Bichan's giving me a look because he's sick to death of hearing about the Souls series at this point. I talk about it every morning in our morning meetings. But I've been playing. I finished Dark Souls 2 recently. I got halfway through New Game Plus, and then I replayed Demon Souls. And so. Yeah, there's a lot of time going into that. So the thing that I'm most excited for right now is that it looks like some news has leaked about the next game in the Souls series, which is being referred to as Project Beast.
Yeah, we talked about it on DLC. This whole discussion came up. Yeah.
Oh, great. So maybe I don't have to cover a lot of it, but the basic story that I'm hearing is that it's a direct sort of spiritual sequel to Demon Souls, the first game in the series, which is really exciting to me because that is by far my most favorite in the series.
Yeah, I have a very long tirade that I go on sometimes about Dark Souls, and I won't. But I will say that I hope some of the main thing that bothers me about the Souls series is the control and the kind
Hmm.
of arcadey kind of feel to it. Um, I just hope that this new one, even if it is like kind of a sequel to the Demon's Souls game, I just want
Hmm.
a little bit more granularity with the control. Like a little less arcadey. That's all I'm asking. Because
Hmm.
it'd be interesting to see what they're going to do with it. Because the screenshots look awesome and it seems like a cool concept. So yeah, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. But I just those controls. Oh,
Controls are usually. Sorry, B10, you go.
Yeah, I consider that game a little bit more technical.
Yeah.
What's it's I don't I mean it doesn't do a lot for you. Like it's not like auto correcting you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to go sidebar in a conversation about this. I'd love to hear that sometime.
I know.
We'll
Well,
talk.
the short version is, and I've said before, again, people who listen to me on podcasts get tired of it. But the short version is, I mean, we grew up with games that were really hard. I'm actually playing a lot of retro games right now on emulators on my Ouya because Ouya has every emulator ever.
Yeah.
And I'm playing a ton of them, and I'm happy that they have save features because I have a save state so I don't like kill myself
Yeah.
because they're really hard. And that's different because I enjoy a game that's really hard but controls well. And I feel like there's a ton of games that were in the past that were really difficult, but it was on me if I messed up. I mean, Super Mario Brothers, on me,
Hmm.
right? The problem is, I feel like with Dark Souls, I've never felt totally in control of some of the actions that I wanted to do. I'd be waiting for an animation, like a roll animation, or waiting for my sword to swing, and I got hit like
Hmm.
3 times in the back, and that's bullshit. By the way, we can't swear on this. And that's the part. That's it, really, in a nutshell. It's not that it
Oh
doesn't do
man.
certain things well, and I love this whole concept Jeff Kanata is trying to sell me on the multiplayer aspect, and I'm going to go back and revisit it because I love that concept of helping other players. So I'm into a lot of what it's doing, and I'm into ideas of difficult games. It's not that. It's just that simple. If I don't feel in control of something and then I die, fuck off. You know what I mean?
Man, I have to stop myself from rambling for an hour and a half about this game, but I totally and completely disagree with everything you just said.
That's awesome. Well, no, give me the short. I think I did a short version of why.
Okay.
So give me the
I
short
mean,
version of why you think the controls are okay then.
okay. Well, okay, so it's not, I guess it's not so much the controls. It's like B-Chan said, right? Like it's a technical game and once you learn sort of the ins and outs and the details of sort of the results that are going to occur from every action that you make in the game, then you do hit a point where you feel like every mistake that happens, every screw up you make, every death that occurs is completely and fully your fault. And it is about it's a very technical game, so it is about like, okay, I have to learn that when I trigger this heavy attack with this particular weapon, when I'm fighting this particular enemy and he's this particular distance from me, this is what's going to happen. It's going to take zero point 0.2 of a second for the weapon to have swung out ahead of me.
Hmm.
If he's a meter and a half away from me, it's going to connect, and it's going to feel great when it connects. If he's 1.75 meters away from me and I swing zero point 0.1 of a second earlier, it's not going to happen, and he's going to punch me in the face, and I'm going to die.
There's a lot of
And
math going on right now.
there's a lot of math going on in your head when you're playing it, and I love that juice because most games, the thing I like about Demon Souls, it's making it hard for me to go and play other games. Like I want to go back and play Wind Waker, for example. I just can't bring myself to do it because I can just lock onto an enemy and mash the A button, and everything's going to be fine. I'm not going to die.
But
Whereas in Demon Souls, like or Dark Souls, like one slip up, you're out. You have to be on your game the entire time.
yeah, and I get the appeal for that.
Hmm.
I think one of the biggest things is as I get older, and especially the kind of life that I live, I'm in the entertainment, do podcasts and shows, and I just have very little time to do
Mm.
anything, including playing games, which is weird because I write about them and talk about them all the time. So if I can jump in somewhere and play like a level of Hitman Absolution, and there's like auto targeting or something, but I feel great and have a fun time for like a half an hour, that's for that time, and that works.
So what you're saying is you don't have 200 hours to spend to get really good at
That
hitting
might be
things
it.
in Dark Souls.
It's interesting how you said it, though. This is the first time I was explained to me that concept of basically, going through it all and figuring out what each thing does as a gameplay thing. You know what I mean? Like, I understood that you had to figure out the game in general. Dark Souls plays a little differently than other games. But how you said it, like every specific item and every specific bad guy has different kind of reaction times and stuff. So, but again, that sounds like a lot of work. And my hat's off to you for beating the game, because that seems like a tough thing to do.
Your hat is off to me for wasting 5 minutes.
I can see both sides of this particular like debate about particularly like controls. Carlos, you seem like a guy who like really like wants to feel like you have a certain slant towards controls in the game.
The 1-to-1, the 1-to-1 makes me feel like I'm part of it,
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like definitely, I finished Dark Souls 2 as well, and like it's good. I didn't love it as much as Dean, and so I kind of just quickly put it away. But that was actually the last game. To answer your original question, that's the last game I like. Actually, the first game in a really long time that I bought on day one. It's just like a super rare experience for me nowadays to do that. But I bought it on day one. I bought it to like the digital download, and I played through it. I basically binged on it, and then like just to like I have to get this done. Have to get it done on my system. I actually haven't been super playing anything a ton right now. I'm playing a game called The Novelist, which is on Steam. It's like this very it's an adventure game about sort of adventure game about a novelist who has to write a book and is struggling to balance their family life and their writing and everything else. It's kind of cerebral.
Wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's kind of I think it's like a sort of a little bit of a sleeper, and it's on Steam. It's pretty good.
Cool.
I'd recommend that one. Other than that, I'm not really playing that much. I'm looking forward to Harmonix's Fantasia whenever that comes out.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting about that. It falls off my radar, and then I see someone show up, or a buddy of mine say, "Hey, I just saw more of it, and it's going to be great."
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for the best for that one. I mean, it's kind of weird because like there's not much else out for like Connect or for anything like that. So I mean, that's like the one thing. So
well, and things that are out that utilize it in the way it should be utilized, right? Not like a fighting game where that doesn't work quite yet. Yeah.
Right. Again, controls.
Yeah, that's funny. When I say 1-to-1, I don't mean Connect. You know what I mean?
Connect is a very different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're the hyper stage is taken up. We did a lot of Dark Souls hyper talk. Hyper Souls. Let's move on to the next stage. Turbo. So in this section, we talk about a retro question, old school gaming question. I've deemed old school to mean before PS1, or like PS1 and before. PS1's old school nowadays. So what old school game, again, with that in mind, did you like as a kid, but other kids thought was dumb, and maybe even like said so to your face?
Yeah.
And I definitely have one for this. I have a lot for this because I was a weirdo. But
Beachan, do you have one on?
I'm trying to think. So, like, this assumes the question assumes that I talk to people about games, which I probably didn't as a kid. Again, like you're getting a portrait of me. Stayed inside, didn't really talk to people.
Yep. Played Game Boy inside. No friends.
Yeah,
as a kid, what?
But I don't. So I don't know if there are like games that are like that were I would consider underrated. But I remember like enjoying weirdly like some bad like movie tie-in type games for the Nintendo. Like the sort of things that was shovelware in those days. Like I can specifically remember for some reason enjoying like a game that was built on that was based on like it was like I think it was like a Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie.
Oh my goodness. Robin Hood.
Wait. Are you talking about the N64 or was this
NES?
Yeah. Wait, was this the one that was based on Hook?
No, but why not? That one works too. Okay. I mean, it's the kind of game. And then there was another one which I remember, which was like based on the second Addams Family movie.
Oh yeah, that was called Addams Family Values, right? The game,
right?
I think.
But there was like the game was like you're controlling Nestor, the bald guy.
Yeah.
I remember
Well,
these
I have
games.
big memories of like playing these movie games and saying, okay, this is pretty good. I don't mind this. Licensed games.
Yeah, Nestor's Quest, I believe, right? Is that right?
Nestor's Quest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so Brian's one was movie tie-in games. Although the Batman game was pretty good, I think. That was kind of a movie tie-in. They did like cut scenes
Oh
from the
yeah,
film.
yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
It's tough. And the Ninja Turtles game, which is just freaking.
Oh well, that doesn't even count. That's awesome. Yeah. All right, Dean, you go.
Sure. Yeah, I B-Chan is making all of these memories flood back of terrible movie tie-in games that I was into as well. Like I can remember there was like a cool flying sequence in the Hook NES game and this terrible little basketball mini game. There was Mission Impossible for the N64 that I waited for so long, and it was like previews in every in Australia we had this magazine called Hyper magazine, and they used to
Oh,
preview in
Hyper,
every
like our stage.
yeah. Yeah, it was like a I think it's still around, multi-platform magazine, and I was like waiting and waiting, waiting for that game, and I played all the way through it, and knew at I basically in the back of my mind knew playing through the whole thing that it was terrible. But being in Australia, I'd spent $120 to buy it, and had waited so long that I just gritted my teeth and got through the whole damn thing.
$120. That is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
back in the N64 days, games were commonly around 100 to $120.
Like US dollars.
Well, I mean the conversion was a little bit different back then. Now it's more parity, but back then, that was the equivalent of I don't know, like maybe like 80 or 90.
That's still top.
US.
That's still top level
Yeah,
for a game.
yeah.
Games were expensive in Australia.
So
Yeah,
were you
yeah.
the only one who had an N64? Or did your friends go like, "Oh, he's got that system. That's funny."
Yeah, I was the guy that was not like B-Chain. You were cool because you were playing the PS1 and PS2, and so were all of my friends. And I was off in the corner of my N64 playing like Banjo-Kazooie.
That's a good game, though.
It was a good game,
It's a
but
good game.
when you're 13 and
History's on your side, dude.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing with the N64 is I'm actually playing a lot of those games right now, and it's going to lead into what I'm actually excited about. Is Super Mario 64? Everybody jumped on board with that because that was the first time we had that 3D true, platformer. So everybody, I remember friends of mine just being like, "What the hell? What is going on? Like, we can do this now?"
I replay that every year.
Yeah,
Easily.
that is an incredible game. Well, along those lines, real quick, the thing I'm hyper excited about, maybe that's a little bit too much. I'm excited about, oh no, I'm jumping back stages. I just jumped back a stage.
That's okay. You can do it. It's your podcast.
Did I ever say what I was hyper excited about? Maybe that's why.
No, you didn't.
I
Sorry,
missed it. All right, hold on. That was a cool effect.
Is there a sound effect that's going to go over that?
Yes, there will be.
Have to make
okay. No, I'm playing Bomberman Hero.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know.
Wait, is that? Oh, I remember that. That's the adventure game.
Yes.
That's Bomberman. I played that. I rented that.
It's not bad at all,
It's really hard.
It's really hard, but here's the thing. So Bomberman, one of my favorite games of all time. I'll still play it to this day, any day, all day. Super Bomberman, particularly for the SNES. But that is a great party game, amazing. And so I just forgot that came out for the N64, and so I was looking through some list of N64 games. And yeah, I'm playing it now, and I can't stop playing it for some reason. I love the concept of throwing bombs and the Bomberman isms, but then like Mario 64.
Yeah, it was like puzzles involving like water and knocking blocks out of the way, and there were bosses and
you jump around and just like Mario.
Yeah, it was a little bit like that Sonic the Hedgehog, that isometric Sonic adventure game.
Yeah.
Or like Snake Rattle and Roll or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to Turbo Retro. Choo. And my memory of liking something as a kid that everybody thought was silly was I had the TurboGrafx. So that in itself could be a whole thing, but we've already covered that on a podcast. So I had the TurboGrafx, and then I had this football game in the era of, I feel like it was pre-Madden or just when Madden came out. There's a series of sports games called TV Sports. So it was like TV Sports Football, TV Sports Basketball, and I knew they were terrible. All right, I knew they weren't great, but they were with my TurboGrafx, and I had to be like, no, my TurboGrafx is better than your Genesis, John. whatever his name was. And so they had amazing graphics, like in the beginning, like the TV announcer, like, welcome to the game, blah, blah, blah. And all the cutscenes and the halftime was cool, but the gameplay was rubbish. But I still had to be like, guys, come on, it's TV sports football. It's like really cool, right? And they were like, no, it is not.
I don't think we even got the TurboGrafx in Australia.
Did you? It was originally the PC Engine. Did you ever get that?
No. If it was in Australia, it was called something completely different. Like
it was called the game system no one bought.
Yeah, the didgeridoo effects or something. I don't know.
None of you guys remember those, right? TV sports.
No.
Remember that one? I just supposedly remember when I think of the Turbo Engine, I think of Keith Courage.
Yeah, which is funny because that's the game that came with the system.
Exactly.
So that doesn't say much. All right, let's go to the last stage. We're gonna do the Super Battle stage. Super Battle. All right, I'm going to refresh the page. This is on videogamebreak.net, our website. There is a thing at the top that says Super Battle Stage. It's where we pit all of the games against all of the games. We're slowly adding all of them, which is kind of gargantuan. But we've added a lot of the good ones so far. So I'll do this until we all decide which one we want to do. These are two games versus each other. I've just refreshed the page, and weirdly enough, I just got Bomberman Hero versus Ape Escape for PlayStation 1.
Oh.
Have both of you played either of those? Or both of them?
Ape Escape is that weird game that had the little monkeys that showed up in the Metal Gear games, right?
I played a lot of Ape Escape 2 for PS2, but I've never played Bomberman Hero.
Okay, we're refreshing it.
Okay.
I would have picked Bomberman Hero, of course, because I just talked about it.
Sure, yeah.
All right, we're going to... this one we should be able to pull off. Uncharted Drake's Fortune versus Journey.
Oh, man.
Drake's Fortune is the first one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
I can do that, yeah.
Okay, here we go then. It's happening. Who wants to start? And then you basically say which game and then why.
Oh, God.
You should win.
Yeah, I mean, I actually like both of those games a lot.
Yeah.
But I think, Journey was, like, mind-blowing to me. In terms of, just, like, particularly this, like, the art and the setting and the theme and how it all came together, but also this really weird thing that they do in the game, which is you meet these other companions, and you don't know if they're human or not, and that's like a really weird concept of like this like sort of like multiplayer that you don't opt into. And now that's kind of an idea that's kind of becoming. Dark Souls does a very similar thing, right? There's like they sometimes fake multiplayer, or they send a guy that looks like a player at you, but it's really an AI, and sometimes it's a player. So I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of gave you this weird relationship with this, maybe a player, maybe an AI sort of. And actually, so Uncharted though, in its defense, they're just apples and oranges, but I think I really like that one, and I think I actually prefer it to the second one, which is probably my unpopular opinion. But I think the second one is way too staged and cinematic, and I actually like the shooting a little more in the first one for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. But you're picking Journey, and I agree with all those things you said, especially the idea of this kind of that multiplayer thing becoming a new way to interact with people, and all you could do is basically nudge or kind of emote at them, and that's your only real communication, which I thought was a really cool technique. Adina, I'll let you go, and then I'll pick mine.
Okay. I have a lot of love for both of those as well. I have very vivid memories of playing both of them, especially Drake's Fortune. Like when I moved to Boston, we moved into a new apartment, and before I had any furniture or any of my stuff from Australia had arrived, I had an apartment and a new TV and a PS3 and a copy of Drake's Fortune, and I sat on the wooden floor and played it 3 nights in a row in an empty apartment, and have a lot of nice memories about that. But I would go with Journey as well, because we're talking about games, and in terms of like which one of those games I would like to see more people sort of take a lead from, it's definitely Journey, right? Like Drake's Fortune is amazing, but it is very much like, okay, let's take, Indiana Jones and these sort of adventure, these adventure experiences you can have in cinema and like make a game about it, and it does that perfectly. Whereas Journey is like, it's doing something that you can only do in video games, and is doing something that's very unique in video games as well. There are so many elements there that you could only pull off in a video game. The stuff that that Brian just mentioned, the multiplayer stuff, and just like the complex emotions that you feel while playing that game. While I'm playing Drake's Fortune, I'm mostly feeling excitement and an adrenaline rush. And when I think about Journey and the things that I felt while playing that, it's like it's a long list of emotions, and they're very complex, and that's much more exciting to me.
All right. So you're picking Journey, and I agree with that as well. I think you both articulated it well, where Uncharted, to me feels like a movie, like a really good movie. If I sat down, like you said, you sat down, you had this kind of experience, which was awesome. But that's the kind of same experience when I was playing, when I play Uncharted, is that I'm watching a really great Indiana Jones movie, and it's awesome, and I love it. I'm kind of helping it go, progress. But Journey is a new way to look at games. It's a new way to interact with people, and it had these aha moments that a game like Uncharted didn't have, and I kind of knew what was coming around the corner. But Journey, I was like, what? Wait, and that's a person? What? And then I can go here? What? And then what? This is what it means? Like all those kind of moments. That's what I live for in games. So it is unanimous. I'm going to go to the website and pick it now. Journey is the winner. Bing! All right, we've done it. The next one is Resident Evil versus Mortal Kombat. We won't talk about that.
The answer is
Resident Evil.
obvious.
Oh, it's Resident Evil 4 versus Mortal Kombat.
Oh, Resident Evil wins everything. So
it's hard because some of those, it's based on like legacy, right? Like I've had so many old school games that are not like superior to the other game, but they're like these memories for us, right?
Yeah. The nostalgia is strong.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are done for just about an hour. Perfect timing. I want to thank you guys for being here, talking about your new game. I'm excited about Captain Forever Remix. A lot more excited now that I actually played the browser-based game, which I highly recommend everybody go do. That's a great way to get started and feel the excitement for what's coming. It's at www.captainforever.com. And then we'll hear more about the new game from you guys. Where people can find you is
www.captainforeverremix.com. And we also have a Tumblr where we're posting about development every couple of days. Links for all that stuff are on the website. So the website is the best place to go to sort of get all of that stuff.
Cool. And Dean, where can people find you on Twitter?
At IAM Dean Tate. I am Dean Tate.
You are him.
I am Dean Tate.
And Brian, where are you?
Mine is Bchan, Bchan says. It's SAYS. So Bchan says.
He says things. You guys are.
Follow Dean. He says more stuff. I don't say much.
Yeah, but it's very
says,
similar.
I am Dean Tate.
Yeah, it's so funny how it's kind of similar. Listen, I am Dean, and I am saying things. Brian's saying things. Anyways. All right. Well, thanks, guys, and I'm excited to play the game when it comes out. And if one of you would just say edit point, that will be the end of the podcast.
Carlos, thanks very much.
Oh no.
Edit.
Oh,
I said if
edit.
Hold on. If one of you will just say edit point,
I know. I thought.
you'll say edit point, and then it'll be over.
Oh no, this podcast is
it's broken. Now it's broken. Actually,
keep talking.
You know that whole I was supposed to give you a kind of points by being a reaffirming yes, and you did well. I'm taking it away.
We're just looking the show. We've shown what happens when you have two guests. It's
Too
I'll do it. Edit point.